What if we fed our hair with the same nourishing ingredients that we feed our bodies? Whatever hair texture or hair type you have, your hungry do will feel well fed from the superfood ingredients packed into every bottle of hair food. Every hair food product is free of sulfates, parabens, dyes, and mineral oils, because your hair does not want to be eating that. So if you're looking to really nourish your hair, it's got to be hair food. Look for it at Amazon, Walmart, and Target. Hey mamacita, welcome to the Mamas con Ganas podcast. That's mamas as in, hey mama, y te traemos episodios para que tengas las ganas de motivarte, surgir y triunfar. Don't be a mama con drama, let's be mamas con ganas. I'm your host, Valentina Izara. On this episode of the Mamas con Ganas podcast, I'm talking about how to overcome resistance. So what is resistance? Wow, resistance can be lots of things, mamacita. Resistance are those challenges that come our way when we're pursuing something that we really love. Resistance is basically like a roadblock stopping you from taking action on that one thing you know you should be taking action on. Resistance is that invisible force that you feel, that voice inside your head that sometimes deters you from doing those things that you know you want to be doing. Deep down inside, you know you want to be doing them, but it's like that voice that always finds the best excuse not to do that thing. And so it's funny, if you saw where I was right now at this moment as I'm filming this episode, all of you would crack up because I am literally not lying to you, facing resistance as we speak, facing it head on, and I'm not letting the resistance that's showing up in my life right now pull me back from sharing another episode with you. It would be very easy today for me to make the best excuse as to not put the next episode out. I could talk about the million reasons in my head that could justify me not putting this episode out. And so precisely, it's interesting. I decided to do an episode on resistance, and I have been having so much resistance lately. It's not even funny. I am literally, not lying, on the floor of my guest bathroom downstairs. And you might be thinking, why are you recording your podcast in your bathroom? Well, at this time when I was going to record my podcast, my house was still very, very noisy. I have 3 boys. I have the nanny who's helping me out tonight so that I could actually get some work done. And my husband is on a conference call. And it was so noisy, I had no other place to go. And I said, you know what? This is not going to stop me from doing this. If I have to do this on the bathroom, let it just serve as an example to my mamacitas that whatever it is that you're wanting to do, don't let any excuse deter you from your higher calling, from that thing that you know you were born to do, what I call your divine assignment. We all have a divine assignment that we came here to pursue and to something that we came to share with the world. That can be anything. You know what that is. That's very personal to each of us. It's interesting, the more I fall in love with creating these podcast episodes for you, the more resistance that I get from my external world as to why this doesn't make any sense, why I don't have any time for this, why it doesn't have room in my life. It's almost as if the more you really decide that that's what you're really here for, the more the universe works to deter you from doing that thing. So this episode is dedicated to anybody feeling that resistance at this moment. Perhaps you finally set that big goal for yourself. And now that you have the clarity it's like you have this tsunami of resistance that comes your way. And I'm here to tell you, it's completely normal. Actually, the higher the calling, the greater the resistance. Now, this is something that what I'm sharing with you is because I've talked about the subject in depth with my life coach, Jose Antonio Valencia, who I've actually had on the podcast before. We did a great episode on how to manifest the love of your life. I have that episode in English and in Spanish. And whenever I find myself going through something really, really difficult, my life coach always reminds me, Valentina, a lot of resistance is showing up because your calling is very big. The greater the calling, the greater the resistance. Interestingly enough, resistance has certain characteristics. I'm going to share some of those characteristics with you. The first characteristic is that resistance is invisible. You can't touch it or hear it or smell it, but you can feel it. We experience it as an energy field. It's like this repelling force that comes at us. It's definitely negative. And its aim, the aim of resistance, is to keep us and to prevent us from doing the work that we set out to do. It's here to distract us. Another characteristic of resistance is that it's very internal. Sometimes we can label the resistance coming from, for example, our husband or our children or our bosses, our jobs. Like we give it a million excuses, but in reality, it's completely internal. It arises from within. And the most interesting part about it is that it's self-generated and self-perpetuated. So we almost like bring it on to ourselves. We can say, oh no, it's because I don't have, when you have this fixed idea of what you want to do and you're clear on your goal and on the thing that you want to pursue, you might say, well, I'm not doing it. You make up a million excuses. You say, oh, I'm not doing it because of my kids. I don't have time. And you label it completely externally and say that it's you basically want to take away your accountability and your responsibility because it's a lot easier to put the responsibility on everything external and say, no, it's because of this and because of that, instead of realizing that the resistance is coming completely from within. It's almost like a self-sabotage. I know that when I'm honest with myself and I'm really deeply introspective as to my life and as to the things that I do right or wrong, I know that the resistance is all coming from within and then I'm self-generating it. It's not a very pleasant feeling to know that, but at least when you realize that the only person holding you back from following your dream is you, we actually take 100% accountability for our life. It's the only moment where we can step into becoming more empowered, because that's the only moment where we're finally going to stop making excuses for not doing what we need to do. And that's the thing. Resistance comes to us and we think it's external, but it's really within. And it comes to us and immediately it's like the perfect reason for us not to pursue our goal. And it comes up with the best excuses, right? It's very sneaky. It's insidious. It will tell you anything. Resistance will tell you anything to keep you from doing your work. It will fabricate, it will falsify, it will seduce you, it will bully you into thinking you shouldn't be doing it. It's very tempting. It'll put you in the victim seat immediately. It's actually going to reason with you. Resistance will reason with you like a lawyer. Will come up with the best excuses for you not to do what you know you need to be doing, right? It will do anything to get you to basically distract you from what you set out to do in the first place. And honestly, it's completely full of BS. Because when we resist to listening to this resistance, to this internal voice that wants to keep us from doing our work, when we finally resist it, we know we're following our higher calling and we're listening to our higher intelligence and to our higher self. And when we actually ignore resistance and just kind of push through and keep on going, even though the moment might be difficult, even though it might be easier to give up, when we keep going, when we persist, we end up feeling really proud of ourselves. Why do we feel so proud of ourselves? Because we know how hard it is to push away and resist the resistance. So one thing I want to say is that you cannot reason with resistance. Because if you reason with it, it will always come up with another excuse. Like I said, it'll sound like a lawyer. And you know what? The other thing is, resistance will never sleep. It never goes to sleep, no matter what. For example, let me give you a personal example. So I have been an actress, a professional actress for over 15 years. And I started acting like in school plays when I was very young. I was like 5th grade, I think was the first time I was in a play. And no matter how many times I've gotten up on stage or have done an audition or send in a voiceover, self-tape, any of those things, no matter how many times I've done it, it's like I always have a fear. Because why? Because it's what I love to do. And I know, and you know, when I was younger, I would always think, oh, one day it will not be there anymore. That fear will just go away. But I can tell you that if I had given up because I felt fear, and if I would have still, I would still be waiting and I would have never done or pursued what I do, because I still, every time I do any of those things, I still face my fear head on. And resistance is fueled by fear. Resistance has no strength of its own. The only juice it has is the juice that we give it. And we feed resistance with power by our fear of it. So if I was to say to myself, I'm not going to send in any more auditions or self-tapes, or I'm not going to record any more podcasts because I'm afraid of making mistakes, or I'm afraid of humiliating myself. And if I let that voice speak to me and overpower me, I would never end up sending any of my self-tapes out, and I would never put myself out there. But if I had let that voice take over, I would have never sent anything. Because it doesn't matter how many times it's been that I do all this, I'm constantly having to fight that voice inside me that tells me, you're not good enough. It's like I have to push through. It's like, it doesn't matter. Just do it anyways. And the do it anyways is actually one of my recommendations for people who procrastinate. I was a big procrastinator, and hey, sometimes I fall back and I procrastinate once in a while, but I definitely don't do it the way that I used to do it. I feel like more and more I put myself out there without questioning. It's not that I don't question myself, but at the end of the day, I say, okay, I know I have high standards. I know I like things well done. But if I never get anything out, I can never make things better. And if I never put myself out there, I won't ever have the chance of ever being hired for a movie or for a play or for anything that I love. So I've just come to reconcile with the fact that when it comes to the things that I love most, I need to push through that fear, because that fear is resistance coming at me full on, like head on, like a train at all speed. And I need to say, hold on a second. I see you, but I'm not going to let you stop me. Okay, Mamacita, hold that thought. Now, a word from our sponsor. Here's an inspired idea. What if we fed our hair with the same nourishing ingredients that we feed our bodies? I've been using clean, simple, kitchen-crafted recipes from hair food and have seen amazing results. Whatever hair texture or hair type you have, your hungry do will feel well fed from the superfood ingredients packed into every bottle of hair food. Oh, and did I mention the scents? Everything from coconut milk and chai spice to refreshing tea tree and lavender water. They're all so different and they all smell so good. Every hair food product is free of sulfates, parabens, dyes, and mineral oils, because your hair does not want to be eating that. So if you're looking to nourish your hair, really nourish it, it's got to be hair food. Look for it at Amazon, Walmart, and Target. So think of that thing, Mamacita, that you really, really want to do, that you really want to pursue, whatever it is, whether it's building your own business or taking up a hobby that you've just dreamed of doing and just have never done. Whatever it is that you want to do, that thing that you want to do will have a lot of resistance behind it. And sometimes that's your compass as to where you should really go. Because there's a lot of fear behind it, and it's a different fear than like the fear that, how do I explain this? The fear that you get from pursuing what you love, you'll know the difference than the fear that you get when you know you're doing something wrong. Because when it's a fear that keeps you doing that which you love, you know the love that's behind that thing you're trying to pursue. So if that's the thing that excites you, if that's the thing that moves you, that's where your gut tells you yes. It's where when you are yourself and when you allow yourself to dream, that's what you're thinking about. And then you feel fear attached to that, you know that that's the fear that you need to literally move aside and keep doing what you're doing and persist and never give up. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. One of my favorite episodes that I did was The Power of Persistence, because it talks about resistance. It talks about how there's this unseen force that's there working against us when we're trying to pursue a goal. And that we have to sort of realize that it's going to be there when we're working at our higher calling. It's always going to be there. And if we pretend that life should be easy or we want life to be easy, then we're never really going to pursue anything. Because if we're waiting for the path of least resistance, yeah, maybe it'll be an easier life because you won't put a lot of effort and a lot of work, but it definitely won't be a gratifying life. And I don't know about you, Mamacita, but one of the things lately that I really think about is, man, I don't want to die with my music inside me. I don't want to die with all these amazing messages and learnings that I've had and not share them with my audience, not share them with my kids. Like, I want to keep growing. And I don't want to die feeling like I could have done more. And whatever that means. I had a very interesting weekend, I went to the baby shower of a really good friend of mine. And I actually came across one of the girls that I interviewed at the very beginning of my podcast journey, Yesenia Reyes. We did an episode about fear, and it was actually faith over fear. Now, Yesenia actually overcame and survived cancer